3 different witnesses described the same small, glowing-eyed creature roaming through Dover, Massachusetts at night. A man opens his door to something with 3 legs, scratching to get in, and a family fires point blank at horrifying monsters that barely react. These are real encounters with creatures that still can't be identified. Back in April of 1977, a teenager named Bill Bartlett was driving down a quiet road in Dover, Massachusetts. It was late, around 10:30 at night. As he was driving along, his headlights hit something standing on a low stone wall. At first he figured it was just a dog, maybe a big cat, but when he got closer, he realized this thing didn't look like any animal he'd ever seen. It was small, maybe 3 or 4 feet tall, but its body was all wrong. He said it had this giant head shaped like a watermelon, and its arms and legs were super thin and long. The creepiest part was the eyes, though. Bill said they looked like 2 glowing orange marbles staring back at him. It didn't have a nose, a mouth, or even ears, just those big eyes and a big head, and its skin was lizard-like, almost like wet sandpaper. Billy only saw it for a few seconds before he kept driving, but Bill wasn't the only one who saw it. A couple hours later, another kid named John Baxter was walking home about a mile away. He saw a small figure coming toward him in the dark. He thought it was a friend and called out, but the thing didn't say anything. When it got close, it suddenly bolted into the woods. Then the very next night, a girl named Abby Brabham saw the same thing while she was out driving. And here's what's really interesting. When investigators looked at a map, they noticed that all 3 sightings happened in a straight line across town. The sightings made sense, and none of these kids knew each other. It wasn't like this was a coordinated hoax, which made it even crazier when all 3 witnesses drew pictures for police of what they saw, and even though they hadn't talked to each other yet, the drawings looked almost exactly the same. In the late 1800s, specifically September of 1891, some guys were out early in the morning delivering ice in Crawfordsville, Indiana. They looked up and saw something that probably made them want to quit their jobs right then and there. It was this huge, white, blurry thing floating in the sky. They said it was about 18 feet long, but it wasn't solid like a plane or a bird. It more like a giant swimming jellyfish, but it was up in the air. It had these weird fins, like long bits, hanging off it as it moved and drifted. It was completely silent, too. Now, if you think these guys might have been on something, I mean, that's a perfectly understandable thought to have, but they weren't the only ones who saw it. A local preacher saw it, too. Now, some tried to say it was just a big flock of birds, maybe some trash blowing in the wind, but the people who saw it up close said absolutely not. To this day, nobody has a clue what the giant sky jellyfish thing actually was, but some wonder today if what they were actually seeing may have been a UFO. It started one night in April of 1973 in Enfield, Illinois. A boy named Greg Garrett was playing outside. He claimed something attacked him, shredding his shoes and jumping on his feet. He said the thing had 3 legs, and a few hours later, a man named Henry McDaniel heard a scratching sound at his front door. He opened it up, thinking maybe it was a stray dog, but instead he saw this monster. Henry said it had a short body, tiny little arms sticking out of its chest, and it had 3 legs. He said the eyes were pink and as big as flashlights. Henry grabbed his firearm and shot at it. The thing just took off, not running, but hopping. He said it was jumping 20 or 25 feet in a single leap. When the police showed up to check the yard, they actually found footprints. They weren't normal tracks though. They had 6 toes. Nobody had any idea what this animal could be. And other people in town started seeing it too, always describing that same weird hopping movement. But then, just as fast as the reports began, they stopped. What was that creature hopping around Enfield that April? Nobody knows. But it's got to be one of the strangest cryptid stories I've ever heard of. In September 1952 in Flatwoods, West Virginia, 2 young brothers, Edward and Fred May, along with their friend Tommy Hare, saw a streak of light go across the sky and crash into a hill nearby. Grabbed their mom, and a couple other kids joined too, as they all went to see what it was. When they got to the top of the hill, the air smelled like burnt metal. Then their flashlights hit something in the dark. They saw this giant figure, way taller than a man, maybe 7 feet tall. It had a glowing red face and a very oddly shaped head. They described it like a spade on a playing card. Its body looked like it was wearing a dark cloak or a skirt. The thing didn't appear to have feet, it just kind of floated toward them. The group immediately turned and booked it back down the hill, but the story didn't end there. See, for days afterward, the people who were there got really really sick. They were puking, and their throats were all scratched up and sore. Later on, the government tried to say they just saw a barn owl sitting on a tree limb and got scared by the shadows, but none of the witnesses were buying that lazy excuse. An owl isn't 7 feet tall, and looking at an owl doesn't make you sick to your stomach for a week. The Frogman of Loveland, Ohio. Sounds more like a meme than a genuine cryptid report, but several people really did claim to see a large bipedal frog in Loveland, Ohio. The first time anyone saw it was back in the 50s, when a guy said he saw 3 little frog people standing by the river. That sighting was reported in the paper, but beyond that, didn't get a lot of coverage. Most people probably just thought he was out of his mind. That is until 1972, when a police officer was driving late at night and saw something huddled by the side of the road. He thought it was an injured animal, but when he got close, the thing stood up. He said it was about 3 or 4 feet tall, had leathery skin, and a face that looked exactly like a giant frog. A different cop saw the same thing a little while later in the same area. Some stories say one of the officers even fired at it, but it hopped away into the water. Years and years later, one of the guys said maybe it was just a big pet iguana that had escaped and lost its tail. That sounds like a good explanation, I guess, but there are a few problems. First, it's way too cold in Ohio for an iguana to be hanging out in the middle of the night. Second, iguanas aren't really known for standing up on 2 legs and hopping. In May 1971, a family in Fouke, Arkansas had a terrifying night. They lived near the swamp. They started hearing weird noises outside their house after the sun went down. A man named Bobby Ford went out on the porch to see what was going on, and the porch light hit something huge. He said it was a giant, hairy creature, maybe 7 feet tall, with glowing red eyes. Before he could even move, the thing jumped at him and scratched his shoulder through his shirt. He scrambled back inside, and the family called the cops. When the police got there, they found actual proof that something had been there. There were huge footprints all around the house, some of them 14 inches long. The porch was banged up, and you could see where something heavy had pushed through the bushes. After that, everyone in town started seeing it. They all said the same thing. It was big, smelled terrible, like rotting garbage, and you could hear its heavy footsteps at night. People compared it to Bigfoot, but nobody could ever prove what it was, even though they found plenty of tracks in the mud. This story from 1955 is one of the strangest, most infamous alien encounter reports ever made. The Sutton family lived in a farmhouse in Kentucky, and one night they came screaming into the police station saying they'd been attacked. They said a glowing object landed in the woods, and then these little men started coming out of the trees. They were small, maybe 3 feet tall, with huge ears and glowing eyes. Their skin looked like shiny metal. The family was terrified. They stayed inside and watched as these things terrorized them, peeking through the windows, climbing onto their roof. The men in the family grabbed their rifles and started firing at them through the windows and doors. They said that whenever they were hit, they would just flip backwards and run back into the woods, totally unaffected. When the police went to the farm, they found bullet holes everywhere and shells all over the floor, but no bodies of any animals. From 1764 to 1767, in a part of France called Gévaudan, something truly scary was happening. For those 3 years, a wolf-like monster was hunting people. And I say wolf-like because it wasn't a regular wolf. It was way bigger, with reddish fur and a giant chest, and even creepier, it didn't seem interested in livestock. It only wanted to attack people. It killed over 100 people during that time, and some put the number as high as 300. The whole country was terrified. It got so bad that the King of France actually sent his best hunters and soldiers to find it. And they killed a few big wolves, but seemingly not the right one. The attacks kept happening. Finally, a hunter named Jean Chastel fired at a massive animal with a silver bullet, and the attacks finally stopped. Now, what I love about this story is that unlike most cryptid legends, this one had a real body count. You can say it was just a really mean, oversized wolf, but it's also possible it was something else. In 1996 in Varginha, Brazil, these 3 women were walking through a vacant lot when they saw something crouched down by a wall. Some sort of creature, and it looked like it was in pain. They said it was about 4 or 5 feet tall, with brown skin that looked oily or greasy. It also had 3 weird bumps on its head that looked like little horns, and its eyes were big and red. They said it smelled strongly of ammonia, like really harsh cleaning supplies. Not long after they saw it, the whole town went into a frenzy. frenzy. People claim the military was everywhere, blocking off roads and taking objects away in trucks. There's even a story that a police officer touched the creature and died a few days later from a weird infection. The government eventually said the girls just saw a local man who was sick and had some physical disabilities, but the girls have stuck to their story for decades, saying that what they saw was definitely not a person. Flathead Lake in Montana is huge and deep, and for a long time people have been saying there's something living in it. Stories go way back, but one of the first big ones was in 1954. A guy named Harold was out in the water and saw what looked like a giant eel swimming along. He guessed it was at least 20 to 40 feet long. Since then, tons of people have been seeing the same thing. They usually see a dark snake-like shape moving under the water, or sometimes a row of humps. What's interesting is that people have seen these humps moving against the wind and the current, which means it's not just a log or a wave, it's something alive. People have even seen big wakes in the water where there are no boats around. Scientists have gone out with sonar to try and find it, but the lake is so big and deep that it would be easy for something to hide. Even though nobody's caught it on camera perfectly, the people who live around the lake are pretty sure they're not alone out there on the water. And that has been the video. I will catch you, yes you specifically, next time.